Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're diving deep into the early days of Apple.
Yeah, the really early days, like before they were, well, APLE. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're talking about Steve Jobs, his leadership, his product philosophy, all that good stuff.
We've got a great source for this deep dive, too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, lay it on me.
We're going to be exploring the audiobook, The Steve Jobs Way, iLeadership for a New Generation.
I'm not familiar with that one.
It's by William L. Simon and J. Elliot. And get this, Elliot actually worked with Jobs at Apple during those crucial early years.
Wow. Firsthand experience. That's awesome.
You're going to get a real behind-the-scenes look at how Apple became, well, APLE.
Okay, so let's set the stage here. What's the mission for today's deep dive? What are we hoping to uncover about Steve Jobs and Apple?
Well, I think we want to understand what made Jobs tick, what drove his success. How did he create a company that was so focused on its products that it was like light years ahead of its time?
Right, right. And those early days, I mean, that's where it all began.
Those were the foundational years.
Hmm.
The seeds of Apple's later success with products like the iPod, iPhone, iPad, you name it, they were all planted during this period.
So fascinating. Okay, let's get into it. One thing that really shaped Jobs' vision early on was his visit to Xerox PARC.
Oh, the Palo Alto Research Center. That was
Yeah.
a game changer for him.
He even called the experience apocalyptic.
He said he saw the future of computing there.
So what did he see that was so revolutionary?
Well, at the time, most people saw computers as these complex, almost scary machines.
Yeah, just for big companies and like tech wizards.
Exactly. But Jobs saw something different at PARC. He saw the potential for computers to be, well, simple, accessible.
For everyone.
Exactly. He was captivated by the idea of making technology intuitive, user-friendly. That became a core part of his whole vision for the future of computing.
And he was particularly blown away by the concept of graphical user interfaces. Even I gotta admit, sometimes I need a little help understanding what that really means.
Okay, so picture this computer screen where you can move a little arrow around.
Okay,
It's called a cursor.
gotcha.
And you move this cursor with what was at the time a pretty new invention, a mouse.
A mouse. Okay, I'm following.
And with that mouse, you click on icons and open windows to access different programs and files. That's the basic idea behind a graphical user interface.
And Jobs, he immediately grasped how this could revolutionize how people interacted with computers.
It was a complete departure from how things worked back then. You used to have to type in all these commands.
Like code, right.
Yeah, it was like learning a whole new language. But Jobs saw that a graphical interface could make computers intuitive, visual, almost like you were interacting with real-world objects.
So this idea was already brewing at Xerox PARC, right? Why didn't they capitalize on it?
Well, their focus was different. They were building machines for large corporations, the enterprise market.
Fancy way of saying big businesses.
Exactly, expensive systems. But Jobs, he saw this opportunity for a computer that anyone could use at home, something that was both powerful and easy to use.
And he really wanted to run with that vision. First, he tried to get the team working on the Lisa computer, which was already in development, on board with his ideas. But they weren't buying it.
You see that pattern a lot throughout Jobs' career. He was a boundary pusher. He was all about challenging the status quo. And he surrounded himself with people who were as passionate about innovation as he was. And when he hit a wall, he found another way.
So when he couldn't get through to the Lisa team, he set his sights on a different project, the Macintosh.
The Mac team was smaller, much more agile, and it fit perfectly with Jobs' whole pirate mentality.
Wait, pirate mentality? That's interesting. Tell me more about that.
It was this idea of a small, dedicated group working outside of conventional structures, like a band of rebels within Apple.
So this wasn't just about technology, it was about a whole culture.
Absolutely. And Jobs thrived in that environment. He fostered this incredible sense of camaraderie and shared purpose. And it really became a hallmark of Apple's culture.
I'm really curious about this pirate image. It seems so anti-corporate.
They leaned into it. They had team retreats. There were Pirates t-shirts. It was like this symbolic rebellion against the norms of the computer industry. It was like their own little secret society within Apple, dedicated to creating something truly groundbreaking.
And when it came to the Macintosh, Jobs really brought his own vision to the table.
Oh yeah, he was laser focused on simplicity, elegance, intuitiveness in the design. He believed technology could be both powerful and accessible.
And he saw the Macintosh as his chance to prove it.
Exactly. And you can really see the contrast here with the corporate environment at IBM. Elliot had worked there before, and it was a whole different world.
Yeah, I imagine IBM was all about, well, being IBM, right?
It was a huge organization with a lot of layers of management. Things moved slowly, and innovation often got bogged down in bureaucracy and red tape.
But at Apple, it was this small, scrappy team.
Like a band of pirates, right?
Exactly. And Jobs encouraged that. He even brought his motorcycle into the Macintosh building and parked it in the atrium. It was like a symbol of their rebellious spirit, a reminder that they were breaking the mold.
Wow, that's such a Steve Jobs thing to do. So we've got this vision, this pirate culture. What else was defining Steve Jobs in those early days at Apple?
Detail.
Detail.
He was obsessed. Every tiny little detail had to be just right.
And not just to make things look pretty, I imagine.
No, no. He knew that the overall user experience was about every single interaction with the product.
From the software to the hardware, the packaging, everything.
Yes. Every detail contributed to the whole experience. He wanted to make it seamless, intuitive, even delightful.
I bet you have some good examples of this obsession with detail.
Oh, yeah. He insisted that the Macintosh be completely silent, which was a massive engineering challenge at the time. Think about it. Computers back then were notoriously noisy.
Yeah, I can still hear that whirring sound in my head. Exactly. And then years later, he'd spend hours agonizing over the placement of 3 words on the iTunes website.
Wow. He was truly meticulous. So this attention to detail must have played a big role in Apple's success.
Definitely. While it sometimes caused delays and even friction with his team, it ensured that every aspect of the user experience was carefully thought through.
So in the end, it helped make Apple products truly exceptional.
Exactly. But, Jobs wasn't some superhuman figure. He made mistakes, too.
Oh, yeah. I'm all ears.
For example, he decided to build a dedicated factory just for the Macintosh.
To control every aspect of the production, I imagine.
Exactly. He wanted absolute control over the quality. But it turned out to be incredibly expensive and ended up hurting Apple financially.
So even with his vision, he wasn't always right.
No one is. But what's important is that he learned from his mistakes.
Yeah, he realized that balancing his vision with the realities of business was crucial for long-term success.
Right. It's a lesson that any leader can learn from.
This has been so fascinating. I'm really starting to get a sense of what made Jobs such a unique leader.
We've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to unpack about his approach to building teams, identifying talent, motivating people to achieve incredible things.
So we've talked a lot about this idea of a product-driven company, but what did that actually look like in practice? How did Jobs make sure that everyone at Apple was on the same page?
It was more than just a philosophy for Jobs. It was how he operated day to day.
He wasn't just sitting in his office making grand pronouncements.
Not at all. He was incredibly hands-on. He was deeply involved in every stage of product development, from those initial brainstorming sessions all the way to the final marketing push.
So he wasn't afraid to get down in the trenches, so to speak.
Absolutely. He believed in leading by example. He was known for his management by walking around approach.
What's that?
He was constantly visiting different departments, talking to employees at all levels.
So he was keeping tabs on everyone.
Well, it was more about creating a culture of open communication,
Right.
making sure that everyone felt comfortable sharing their ideas.
So that the best ideas could rise to the top, no matter where they came from.
Exactly. He also understood the power of storytelling. He would often share personal anecdotes,
Oh, like what?
stories about his passions, his vision for the future, things like that. It was his way of connecting with his team on an emotional level.
To get them excited about the work they were doing.
Yeah, to make them feel like they were part of something truly special.
So it wasn't just about barking orders, it was about inspiring people to buy into his vision.
Exactly. And remember, this was all happening within this pirate culture we talked about.
Right, the Macintosh team, those rebels with a cause.
Exactly. He even, remember, parked his motorcycle in the atrium of the Mac building.
Such a classic Steve Jobs move. So it was about creating an environment where people felt free to challenge conventions.
Right. And he also understood the importance of celebrating success.
So it wasn't all work and no play.
Oh, no. He made sure to acknowledge and reward achievements, big or small. It was his way of building team spirit.
Okay, so it sounds like Jobs was really good at motivating people, but let's be real, he also had that reputation for being, well, intense. I imagine it wasn't always easy working with him.
You're right. It could be tough. His passion and drive, they were undeniably key to Apple's success. But sometimes his intensity could be overwhelming.
You'd see that.
He could be very demanding, very critical, and sometimes even dismissive of ideas he didn't like.
So it sounds like a delicate balancing act, right? Pushing for excellence, but also creating an environment where people can thrive.
It is. And it wasn't always perfect. Ellie tells this story about Jobs getting frustrated with a project's slow progress. He asked an employee, "What are you doing to earn the money I'm paying you?"
Ouch. That's pretty harsh.
It was. And it shows how his drive for results could sometimes overshadow his empathy.
Yeah, I guess even the greatest leaders have their flaws.
That's right. No one is perfect. But what matters is that Jobs was aware of his shortcomings. He was always trying to learn and grow as a leader.
So, like with that Macintosh factory, he made a costly mistake there, but he learned from it.
Exactly. He recognized that he had to balance his vision with the practical realities of running a business.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about his talent for building teams. We mentioned earlier how he had these unconventional hiring practices.
Jobs was a master at putting together teams of A players, people who were not only brilliant in their respective fields, but also shared his passion for innovation.
Right. And he wasn't afraid to think outside the box when it came to finding those people.
Oh no, he famously grilled software engineer Andy Hertzfeld during his interview, really put his skills to the test. He hired Susan Kerr for her artistic talent, even though she didn't have a traditional tech background. And then there's Joni Ive.
The legendary Apple designer.
Jobs recognized his genius right away. He saw something special in him. He ended up promoting him to design chief, and the rest, as they say, is history.
So it sounds like he wasn't looking for just skills and experience, but also that certain spark, that passion.
Absolutely. He wanted people who were excited about the products they were creating, who had that fire in their belly.
So once he had assembled these all-star teams, how did he keep them motivated? Was it all fear and intimidation?
Not at all. While he could be demanding, he also knew how to inspire people. He would publicly acknowledge achievements, celebrate milestones.
To make everyone feel valued?
Exactly. And he would often personally deliver bonuses and rewards, with handwritten notes of appreciation.
So there was a human touch there, too.
It was that balance between demanding excellence and showing genuine appreciation that made him such an effective leader.
But let's not forget about the clash with John Scully, the CEO Jobs himself brought to Apple. They seemed to have a great relationship in the beginning, but things took a turn. What happened there?
It really came down to a difference in vision for the company.
Okay, break that down for me.
Jobs was all about the Macintosh. He believed it would be a revolutionary product for consumers.
But Scully didn't see it that way.
Scully had more of a traditional corporate background. He came from PepsiCo. He was focused on selling to businesses.
Ah, so he wanted to go the traditional route, focusing on corporate sales.
Exactly. And it really came to a head during that infamous shelf space meeting.
What happened there?
Scully was arguing that Apple needed to focus on securing more shelf space in retail stores, basically applying the same strategies he had used with Pepsi.
But Jobs, I imagine, saw things differently.
Oh, completely. He thought that approach totally missed the point of the Macintosh. He saw it as something much bigger, something that could disrupt the entire personal computing industry.
And that clash of philosophies ultimately led to Jobs' departure from Apple in 1985.
Yeah, and it's important to note that he wasn't fired, as many people believe.
He chose to leave.
He felt he could no longer effectively lead the company with Scully at the helm.
Wow, that must have been a tough decision to walk away from the company he built.
It was. Elliot actually tried to convince the board to keep Jobs, but they sided with Scully.
So Jobs was out? What did he do next?
He wasn't done. He founded NextT Computer.
To prove that he could still build something amazing.
Exactly. And it was a whole new direction. He was inspired by a conversation with a Stanford professor and decided to focus on creating a powerful workstation for the education market.
So from revolutionizing personal computing to focusing on education.
It was a big shift, but it showed his adaptability, his willingness to try new things.
But he never truly let go of Apple, did he? Remember that whole "we want our jobs back" t-shirt thing?
Yeah. It was a joke, but it also showed that he still had a deep connection to Apple.
Almost like a longing for a past love.
Exactly. And here's where it gets interesting. That NextT platform, with its advanced operating system, actually ended up becoming the foundation for the future Mac operating system.
So the technology he developed while exiled from Apple played a crucial role in Apple's later success. That's wild.
It really is. And it just highlights how Jobs never stopped believing in himself and his ability to innovate.
This is incredible. I'm seeing so many connections between these different chapters in Jobs' life and career.
And we're just getting started. We still need to explore his leadership style in more depth, how he motivated those incredible teams, and how he created that culture of excellence at Apple.
Okay, I want to touch on something that we haven't really talked about yet. Pixar.
Ah, yes. The animation powerhouse. What about it?
I'm fascinated by how Jobs even got involved in that world. I mean, it seems so different from Apple and computers.
It's a really cool story that actually starts while he's still at Apple, early 1980s.
Hmm.
Jobs sees this demo of a new technology.
Okay.
It was called computer-generated imagery, or CGI. It was revolutionary. It allowed filmmakers to create these realistic 3D animations using computers.
So this is what, way before Toy Story? CGI was still in its infancy, right?
Exactly. Back then, most people saw CGI as this niche technology. Maybe something you'd see in, I don't know, a sci-fi movie or a fancy tiki commercial, but not Jobs.
You saw the potential.
Oh, he absolutely did. He had that knack, didn't he, for seeing what others missed.
So what did he envision for CGI? What was his big idea?
He saw a future where anyone could create stunning visuals, where storytelling could be enhanced by this amazing new tool. He saw it revolutionizing not just entertainment, but education, science, even the way we communicate.
Wow, so he wasn't just thinking about cartoons. He saw it transforming entire industries.
Exactly. And you got to remember, this was a time when computers were still, well, kind of clunky and expensive. Most people couldn't even imagine having one at home. But Jobs, he saw what was coming.
So did he start developing CGI technology at Apple?
He went a different route. He was so captivated by this technology that he actually ended up buying the computer graphics division from Lucasfilm, George Lucas's company.
No way. So that's how Pixar was born?
That division became the foundation for Pixar.
Wow, so Pixar was kind of like this side project for Jobs while he was building NXT.
It's pretty wild, right? But that was Jobs. Always pushing boundaries, always exploring new possibilities.
But I imagine Pixar's early days weren't easy.
You're telling me. It was a new studio, a new technology, lots of challenges, both creatively and financially. But Jobs, he was determined.
Sounds familiar. So did he use those same principles he used at Apple? Building a strong team, a culture of innovation?
Absolutely. He assembled this team of incredibly talented animators, storytellers, technologists. He provided guidance, financial support. He knew what it took to build something special.
And after years of hard work, Pixar released Toy Story in 1995.
And it blew everyone away.
Critically acclaimed, box office smash. It changed animation forever.
And remember, Toy Story wasn't just a technological marvel. It was a beautiful story, full of heart, humor, unforgettable characters. It proved that CGI could be used to create movies that were not only visually stunning, but also emotionally resonant.
And Pixar's legacy is undeniable. Think about all the incredible films they've made, from Finding Nemo to Inside Out. They've entertained and inspired generations of moviegoers.
And it all started because Jobs was willing to take a chance on something new, something unproven. I think there's a lesson in that for all of us. Don't be afraid to explore new ideas, even if they seem a little risky.
You never know where those ideas might lead. So looking back at everything we've discussed today, from Apple's early days to Pixar's rise, what are some of the key takeaways? What can we learn from Steve Jobs?
Well, first and foremost, the power of vision. Jobs had this incredible ability to see the future, to imagine things that most people couldn't even fathom. But he wasn't just a dreamer, he was also a doer. He had this drive to turn his vision into reality.
That combination of vision and action, it's what set him apart.
Absolutely. And he also understood the importance of building a great team. He knew he couldn't do it all alone. He surrounded himself with brilliant people, and he knew how to motivate them, inspire them, create a culture where they could thrive.
And that product-driven focus, that was crucial too, right?
Totally. He believed that companies should be built around products, not functions. Everyone focused on creating exceptional products that customers would love.
It's about staying agile, innovative, and always focused on the end user.
Exactly. And finally, I think Jobs' story is a testament to persistence and resilience. His journey wasn't a walk in the park. He faced setbacks, challenges. He was even forced out of his own company. But he never gave up. He kept pushing forward.
It's a great reminder that success isn't always a straight line. There will be ups and downs, twists and turns, moments of doubt. But it's the ability to persevere, learn from mistakes, and keep going that really matters.
And those are qualities that we can all learn from, no matter what field we're in.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and insights with us today.
It's been my pleasure.
And to all our listeners out there, thanks for joining us on this journey through the early days of Apple and the incredible life of Steve Jobs. We hope you found it as fascinating as we did.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, keep pushing boundaries. You never know